Hi class, Melissa Jane Best here. The camera is hard to angle. There we go. Melissa Jane Best, November 21st, 2022, lab number 3 for anatomy and physiology. Sorry, the camera's backwards, so it's very hard to function that. Okay, so this week I had to do something different because I don't have a printer, and also on top of that, I was not able to print out pictures of the things that I want to talk about in regards to the lab this week. So I decided to do a video presentation that consisted of the pictures on the slides that I have created along with my glorious face here for you. So I want to start off with the Intugumentary System, which consists of organs and functions of our, here we have skin, hair, nails, glands, and our sensory nerves, which you can tell there's an endless amount of sensory nerves. There's a lot. All right, so we're going to start with skin. We're just going to focus on that for right now. So I'll go to our fancy little picture here of our skin. So we have 3 main layers of our skin. We have right here, as you can see my arrow, the epidermis. This is the outermost layer, provides protection from water and creates our skin tone. And then we have right here this flesh-looking pinky bit. This whole entire area is going to be our dermis. And then underneath here, where the yellow is going to be our hypodermis, our deeper subcutaneous tissue. Go back here to the dermis, where this layer is beneath the epidermis, and it contains tough connective tissue. It also contains our hair follicles and our sweat glands. And then our deep subcutaneous layer, which is the hypodermis. This layer is made up of connective tissue and does all the fat storage for us in order to keep warm. All right, so move forward on to this fun little slide, and we're just going to focus on 1 through 6. 1 through 6 here, and then we can see that this one is the dermis, and this is the subcutaneous layer, just so there's no confusion, but we're just going to focus on the epidermis, which has about 6 sublayers to it. We have number 1, the stratum corneum. Stratum corneum, which is the skin's outermost layer here. This is our first line of defense to any mechanism on the outside world that prevents unwanted materials entering into our body. This layer also helps with excessive loss of water from exiting our body as well. Now this right here, number 1, is going to be the stratum corneum. And then number 2, right here, we're going to see the pink line. And even though it's thin, it's actually very thick. And it's a layer that is dominantly in the thickness of our hands and soles of our feet. This layer is to help prevent damage to the most common areas that are used widely, like our hands and our feet. It's also more dominant in the sides of our fingers as well, and then the heels of our feet as well. And then just under the layer of the skin of the epidermis, the stratum corneum, is this layer. And that helps kind of protect and strengthen that layer as well to help protect. Number 3, which is going to be the darker purple little morsels here. And number 3 is going to be the stratum granulosum. This layer of the skin has dense basophilic keratin granules. Under a microscope can be seen a little bit more clearly, but this picture does a pretty good job at showing it. The granules in this layer contain liquids and connections to help provide the waterproof function of the stratum corneum, and basically the whole entire water connection of the epidermis layer. This layer also helps prevent water loss from the body, so it's very vital that it also works in conjunction with number 4, the stratum spinosum. So it's going to be the lighter purple granules here. It's a little bit thicker layer in regards to size. This is where we have our strength and our flexibility in our skin. And the name comes from the fact that the specific cells in this layer contain several granule cells that we see. And then moving forward into number 5 is our stratum basal layer. And this layer is our base layer to the epidermis. It's the innermost part of the epidermis that contains the column-shaped basal cells that are constantly dividing, and they're also being pushed upward. And it contains our melanocytes, which is responsible for the pigment of our skin. And then just under number 5, we have number 6 right here, which is going to be our basement membrane. This is a very important function here, and also a very important layer that often gets looked over, just because it's relatively just for the anchor of the epidermis. But it's not just the anchor of the epidermis. It helps hold down the epithelial tissues to the loose connective tissues, which is the dermis, and below the epidermis here. So you see the dermis, epidermis, and the subcutaneous layer. So it holds these two basically together. And then it also stops malignant cells from invading deeper into the tissue of the dermis and the subcutaneous layer that can possibly metastasize. So this is a very thin layer, but it's very, very vital to protection of our skin. Okay, so we want to move forward into this picture here. We'll move back into this picture. So we said that right here in the middle is our dermis area. So this little salmon pink color here. And we want to divide this in the middle here. And you're going to have the top here is going to be, and this is actually a better picture for it, to be honest, because you'll see that the top is a lighter pink and below here is a darker pink. So the top pink here is going to be the Palparate Dermis, and then the bottom is going to be the Reticular Dermis here. So number 1 would be the Palparate Dermis, and then number 2 would be on the bottom section of the dermis, the Reticular Dermis. Let's go back to this picture just because I like that it's 2 different colors and it's easy to tell which is which. So the purpose of the Palparate Dermis is for collagen fibers. This layer supplies nutrients to the selected layers of the epidermis, and the nutrients, it provides major nutrients to control and help control the body's temperature and acts like a thermal regulator. So this is accomplished by having a thin, extensive vascular system. This layer here almost works closely relative in relation as the vascular system within our body. And then the Reticular Dermis, that is the darker pink section of the dermis. This lies just underneath the Palparate Dermis, so Reticular Dermis. And this function consists of dense fibers that enable strength to be given to the skin's layers and the sublayers within. It also provides structure in the skin and elasticity. This sublayer of the dermis supports several other components of the skin, such as hair follicles, producing sweat glands, and also supports our sebaceous glands in our body, which we all know is important in regards for sweating and then regulating body temperature. Okay, so now that we're going to stay on this picture here because we're going to move into our hypodermis, which is the 3rd layer of our skin, 3rd main layer. And this consists of well-vascularized loose areolar connective tissue and our adipose tissue. So majority of this layer is to store fat for us, which provides insulation and cushioning. This is also where the subcutaneous injection would go. So if we're giving an injection at, boom, 45-degree angle, you see my arrow here, it goes into the subcutaneous fatty adipose tissue for absorption. And this is where absorption happens quickly in regards to subcutaneous layers. And this helps us keep warm. It helps with cushioning. It's very vital. So having a little bit of fat on us is not a bad thing. So just a little fun factoid of our skin. If we take an inch of our skin off, we will be able to see that there are about 19 million cells that also include about 300 sweat glands in just 1 inch area of our skin. Our feet is where the thickest of our skin is located, as we have spoken before in regards for protection, and our thinnest layer is on our eyelids. Our skin also sheds about every 28 to 30 days in regards to regenerating new skin cells on top of the body. And we also shed about 30,000 to 40,000 dead skin cells every minute. So whenever you're dusting around your house, you'll be well known that might be dead skin cells. Okay, so let's move forward on to skin diseases of the body, which there are several. However, one of my favorite ones that I have always found fascinating is necrotizing fasciitis, which you'll see in the picture here. The necrotizing fasciitis basically eats away skin. It's also known as the flesh-eating disease. So this condition is bacterial infection. It results in deaths of part of the skin tissue. It happens suddenly and rapidly. The symptoms include red or purple skin. So I'll move on to this picture here. So around the area would be red or purple. You'll have erythema and edema, which is redness and swelling. Symptoms include the specific area, like I said, changing color. You would have fever, you would have vomiting, you would be in severe, severe pain. And this can happen with just a touch of a doorknob after somebody has been infected with this particular disease. Let's say you get a paper cut and it's just a small sliver where bacteria can get into. That's caused by the Streptococcus group A. That's the bacteria that causes this. It's fast moving. Symptoms usually happen within hours. It eats away each layer of the skin one by one, but very, very quickly. As we can tell, this is something that was left untreated. As well as this picture here. So we have the skin, then it goes into the subcutaneous layer, then it goes in the fascia and the muscle tissues, then you have changing of the skin color. And so it's very important that you get this seen right away. So as it eats away each layer of the skin, it continues into the sublayers, and then it reaches the fascial layers, like I was saying, and then the subcutaneous layers, and then it goes into the muscle, and then muscle until bone, and then if it's left untreated, it can be either very fatal. About every 1 in 3 people suffer from this disease, and it can also cause amputations, severe scarring, because if you see my mouse here hovering over the fasciitis, the necrotizing fasciitis, you can see that all of this needs to be removed surgically by obviously a surgeon, a dermatologist, that this may not be able to be replaced by a skin graft. So a major scar will be here because this is a pretty severe severe case. And in a move here, if it's on the leg as well, it'll just rapidly grow. So it could also be loss of limbs for amputation. And like I said, it can be very fatal to somebody, especially if it goes left untreated. And if you do get it, then you must go to the ICU or CCU. You'd be isolated. It's extremely contagious. So it is not taken lightly in the hospitals. So it's important we know the layers of our skin and the function of each layer of the skin. We need to know it in our first line of defense against the outside world. In medicine, as PAs, doctors, nurses, any type of medical staff, we need to know each layer and what consists of their functions in order to treat properly and be able to know what specialist needs to be seen for this patient, and not to ignore any type of symptoms or pain-related symptoms in regards to what's happening to somebody's skin, because it's very important. And then this also properly ensures that the patient will be taken care of and be treated accurately. So that is my fun little slideshow for you, and I do apologize. I wish I had my pictures, but I fear this is also a little bit better because you're able to see more clearly of each layer of the skin. And going back to the top here of what our system contains of hairs, and back to our skin in general, our epidermis, dermis, and then our hypodermis. All right. Thank you so much.